You're watching the Red Line Radio Network.
That Saturday's here, the lights are bright. College football's taking flight. From the kickoff to the final fight, we're running student body right. Helmet on, crowd going wild. Every campus ready to get riled. Big time plays and rivalry pride. Ryan F's got the football right. Rankings rise, rankings fall. Every Saturday somebody's got a call. Touchdowns flying, defenses collide. Strap it up, student body ride.
Ladies and gentlemen, football is back.
With Ryan F tonight.
Goes over here on the Riverbend Star Lounge, John Pagano.
Big plays underneath the lights.
Rutgers University dialect.
To the Big Ten
Oh, I'm just joking.
safely pray.
Welcome. Hey, the football championship series, college football at the FCS level starts tonight. But welcome to everybody right, the 2026 college football president. From now until 9 o'clock, I'm not going to take any picks until the very last 5 minutes of the show when I will pick who I think will make the college football playoff. I'm not going to shoot them. I think it's dumb. That'll be for later on. But thanks to the quartet there. But welcome. Coming up at 6 o'clock here, hopefully, between now and 6:15, Brian Scott Rippey. He covers Ole Miss football. I'll be picking his brain about Ole Miss, what he's seen this summer camp. Tell me what he thinks. I need to do him justice, though. Let me pull it up on the Twitter machine. At BS Rippey, at BSRIPPEE on the X. Writing rippywrites.substack.com. Sign up now for half off the original cost of nothing. Also at CBS 247 podcast, part of at MPW_digital, former MAIS athlete. podcast.apple.com/US/podcast/rip. Obviously for Rippy. But welcome. Thanks for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from across the globe. I'm just so happy that football is back. And he actually just popped into the green room. I need to get to my notes here. He is in the room, Brian Scott Rippey. I got to do him justice, though. Where is it? Is it this one? I believe it is. It might take a minute to queue up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't recognize that, that is University of Mississippi fight song. At least that's what YouTube told me. This is the Ole Miss fight song. Ole Miss. Obviously, the Lane Kiffin thing last year. They made the playoffs. I thought they performed well in the playoffs. But let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. That's Mr. Brian Scott Rippey. Brian, thanks for joining the program.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Thanks.
Yes, sir. So what have we seen from summer camp? What have you seen? Can you tell me? You've got the inside scoop. Obviously, it's going to be Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey. I think they're going to have to revamp that offensive line a little bit. I'm not so much worried about the defense, but what have you seen this summer camp so far?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like access and being able to see stuff, not a ton, which is pretty typical of college programs these days. But I do think As far as the defense is concerned, I think this defense has a chance to be as good as the 2024 defense, if not better. I mean, they're going to be. I would be shocked if they weren't a very good defense that borderline on elite. They've got a lot more depth at position, like premium positions, like being the offensive line. Like the defense was okay last year, but they were not able to rotate enough bodies to stay conditioned during games. I mean, there's that famous play at the end of the Miami loss where Xavier Harris is just on the ground because he's totally gassed. I don't think you're going to see as much of that this year because I do think they have more depth. I really like what they have in the secondary. So I think the defense is going to be good. To me, this entire thing hinges on, like, is John David Baker, can he be 75% of what Lane Kiffin and Charlie West Jr. were? Because if he is, this team could be absolute hell on wheels. They could be really good. If they're not good offensively, then that's a whole other story. But I'm not really worried about the defense.
My man here, the owner basically of the Red Line Radio Network, Dave Wildcheck, saying, "What's up, Brian? Thanks for checking in, DW." So look, last year, magical season, derailed by the shit show that was Lane Kiffin, and he continues to be a shit show even at LSU.
It's a surprise to anybody. It's look at the news every day now.
Yeah, it boggles the mind. Actually, it doesn't boggle the mind because that's just what he does. This is who he is. Building off of last year, obviously the playoffs are the goal and beyond. So what do you need to see out of this team this year from last year?
Similar offensive output as I answered a second ago, but the thing that is interesting to me is this is undoubtedly, in my opinion, a better football team than the 2025 team. The difference is the schedule. And I think any rational Ole Miss person would admit this. Ole Miss had about as favorable as a schedule as you could get last year. They got 8 home games because they had the weird thing where Wake Forest backed out of the home and home and they added State. But you had 8 games at home. You had 4 road games, and one of those was in Starkville, Mississippi, where you didn't have to leave the state, and it wasn't a very good state, just being honest. You're talking about 3 pretty tough road games. This year is a whole different animal. You have to go to Austin. You have to go to Norman again. You get LSU at home. It's a much, much tougher slate. Like, again, last year was about as favorable as a schedule as you could ever ask for Ole Miss. And so I'm not sure if I need to see a ton from this team other than to see this offense in action, because it's interesting to me, like John David Baker went to ECU and he turned them from a bottom 4 FBS offense into a top 25, top 31. But the offense he ran there was much more similar to like a Josh Heupel, where it's a lot of tempo, a lot of like wide splits. And they keep talking about how the offense is going to be 80% the same. I'm not saying that's wrong and not going to believe it, but that's not really what he ran at ECU. So what is the growing pains, if any, there? Because I think that would be the one thing that derails them. So I guess more better offensive output, and then just like, how do you manage what is a way more difficult schedule than what you had a year ago?
How crucial is it that this offensive line open up the holes for Kawan Lacey? Because he had a fantastic year last year. I'm picking him as a dark horse Heisman candidate for the Heisman Trophy this year. But did they revamp the offensive line just a little bit? Because I know that was kind of a concern after last year from what I was reading.
Last year, they were very, very fortunate that they had no injuries on the offensive line. If they'd had a single injury, they'd have been in real trouble. Mm-hmm. And I would say the unit wasn't great, even with the 5 healthy guys. I would say they were average most times, and Kewan Lacey made them look really, really good. What was interesting about last year is if Kewan Lacey got hurt, he was the most important. I know Trinidad became a sensation and all that. I get it. But Kewan Lacey was the most important football player on that team last year, because if he went down, you're talking about Logan Diggs, who's a 6-year guy on like his 3rd knee, as the only backup option. They were toast. If Kewan Lacey had missed any amount of time last year, they were in trouble. I think they've improved the depth in the running back room. Losing both tackles on the offensive line, I don't necessarily think that's a total a thing that they're not going to be able to replace. At left tackle, they have a guy named Therese Davis, who is kind of their 6th Swiss Army offensive lineman last year that never really had to play because they didn't have any injuries. Right tackle is a little bit of a different story. They have LSU transfer Carius Kern, who shows flashes of brilliance, but a little bit of maturity issues. He got arrested in the offseason. And then they have the Kinsler kid from Miami, who they keep it was interesting to me. I said
What's up there? Yeah.
a lot of Pete Golding said in his press conference to start the preseason camp that they still want to change his body a little bit. That's not a great sign if you're counting on him to start at a tackle position on the offensive line in the Southeastern Conference. So, I think they'll be fine on the offensive line. I actually think they'll be better depth-wise, but I'm very curious to see how they replace the tackles. That will be key to me, particularly at right tackle.
Is the offense going to run through Trinidad or going to run through Kiwan?
I think probably both. They did an incredible job of using Trinidad's ability to extend plays with his legs, not even just extend plays, but in the design running game last year. I think you'll see a little bit more of that. I think you'll see less carries from Kejuan Lacey because they have better depth at running back. Kejuan Lacey ran the football 305 times last year. That's not sustainable. The odds of them trying to do that again and him not getting hurt are pretty minuscule. So I think you'll see less of that and a little more of a, socialistic, I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, like a carry dispersal because they feel like they trust more guys. But I think it'll run through both of them. I think they feel like they're very good in the tight end room. They have some interesting talent pieces at receiver that are mostly unproven beyond Deuce Alexander because, they lost a lot of receivers last year. Just Stribling is now with the 49ers. Caden Lee is at Missouri with Austin Simmons. So they have some interesting pass-catching pieces. I do think the tight end room will be one that about 4 weeks into the season, people look up and say, damn, they got some guys, even though they lost Daquan Wright, who I know has been in the news lately. But, I think it'll run through both of them, honestly. I think they're the two that spearhead this offense.
Corey Lindsey checking in, saying go Dogs. I know where his allegiance now. Is it the Mississippi State Bulldogs?
That's what I was about to ask, what kind?
I'm thinking, since I'm covering Ole Miss, it's probably Mississippi State, but you never know.
I'm high on State this year. I think they'll be pretty good.
Yeah. So let's go back over the schedule again. They open with Louisville. Louisville's no slouch. I fully expect Ole Miss to win this football game. Then they got that powerhouse Charlotte. So they're going to win that one. Corey Lindsey says the real one. So you're talking Mississippi State then. He's saying Ugga. Yeah. Oh, I figured it was Ugga. Look, the 5 games that I have circled that are going to make or break their season are LSU, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to get out of my Gators, but the Swamp is still a tough place to play. Not the last couple of years, maybe the last 2 or 3 years. The Texas one is huge. I think if they can go through those 5 particular games, either 3-2 or 4-1, they're going to be 10-2 or 11-1, even if they lose to Texas. But I'm going to call it now. I've got them making the playoffs.
I am a little hesitant to go that far. It's not unrealistic by any means. I just kind of need to see it because, again, there's a world where this team is very good at 9-3 and get squeezed out of the playoffs because they added a 9th conference game. The conference didn't expand. But, yeah, I think the games you circled are completely correct. I actually go to that Florida game as a fascinating one because you got to think about when Florida gets them. For Florida, they have 2 tune-up games. They go to Auburn, which they could very easily win. I don't know if Florida will be any good, but I don't know if Auburn will be any good. You're telling me right now you can go into Jordan Hare and win that game under your first year Alex Golish, who basically brought his USF team out of necessity. Like, they could win that. So if Florida's 3-0 going into that game, think about this. You get this Ole Miss team the week after the LSU game. And they either lost that game and like that. Look, I don't care what anybody says. That's going to be a game that beats one of them twice. And I'm not even sure which one it is. I'm not even sure it's the winner or the loser, but they're either riding the highest of possible highs after the circus that is going to be September 19th, or they're going to go to the Swamp after that loss and having to rebound immediately in a terrible environment as a compliment, like a raucous environment that Ole Miss historically has had almost no success. And that's going to be a tough one. That'll be first night home game, I would imagine, of the John Sumrall era. That's going to be a tough one. So, yeah, if you told me they got both the LSU and the Florida game, this team's in great shape. If you split it, it's not the end of the world, but you still got a decent amount of work ahead of you because that means essentially you're going to have to beat Georgia at home and then probably split Texas and OU on the road. So really them getting both of them is probably going to make their season. I think you're going to know a lot about where Ole Miss stands after that Florida game. Not the end of the world if they split it, but like that's going to be a fascinating game to me because they enter a bye week after that too.
Right. The LSU game, it's at home.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's probably going to be a night game. Have they come up with that particular schedule yet?
6:30.
It is going to be 6:30. So it's a semi-quasi night game. As a college football fan, I would love nothing more than Ole Miss to just beat the holy shit out of LSU. I'm not going to make any bones about it. I would just love to see it, as would Ole Miss fans, because that place is going to be rocking.
I would think most people agree with your opinion. Like, right, if you're a fan out there listening, you don't even have to really like Ole Miss. But if there's any justice in this world with the way Lane Kiffin and LSU have handled things over the last 12 months and what they're continuing to do in the news every day, if there's any sort of like justice and karma in the world, like Ole Miss will win that football game. I think Ole Miss is a better team. I think they have a better roster. I think the game will be close. I think Ole Miss is like a 3-point favorite as it stands now, which doesn't really mean anything because, you know, no one really knows what these rosters are until you see it in action. But if there's any justice, it'll happen. I will tell you, though, like, I think I'm not alone. I think Ole Miss fans would probably agree with this. There's a large faction in this place that is ready for September 20th and for that to be over because it's become such just like a toxic, like oxygen-sucking sideshow and circus. Right. That, like, yes, there will be a football game. Will it be a incredibly wild environment and a very angry one that's unlike any sporting event we've seen in some time? Yeah, probably. But, like, then what? You got 9 more of these things to play. I think there's a lot of people, particularly on the Ole Miss side, they're kind of ready for that to be over with. And you can count me in that camp. I would be a much, like, I mean, I won't say happier person, but, like, a lot more stress on September 20th. I'm ready for that to be over, to be completely honest at this point. It's become such a circus.
Yeah. Corey Lindsay says Ole Miss puts a hurting on LSU.
I would hope so.
And he says Ole Miss looked better in the playoffs without Kiffin.
I don't think Kiffin believed he could beat Georgia and advance to the semifinals. And I don't think they actually win that Georgia game with Lane Kiffin as head coach. Color me crazy. Not saying Golding's a better coach than Kiffin. I don't think they win that game if Kiffin is coaching them.
2 more things. I'll get you out of here.
Sure.
Ole Miss, putting you on the spot. What is your predicted record for Ole Miss this year?
I'll conservatively go 9-3. Like I said earlier, I do think this team is going to be good. I kind of need to see what the offense looks like under John David Baker. Because, like, on one hand, Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr., for whatever you think of Lane Kiffin, they were really, really good offensively. They could scheme some offense. And the idea that there's not going to be any drop-off at all, I think is kind of dumb. But if there's not much drop-off, I mean, John David Baker was in the program for 2 years. He's the one that got Jackson Dart to Ole Miss, and they're saying the offense will be the same. If they're good offensively, they're going to be really, really tough to deal with. I'm very bullish on their defense. So I'll say 9-3 just because I think 10-2 is a really, really hard mark to get to with this schedule. So I'll say 9-3, but if they went 10-2 and made the playoff, it wouldn't shock me at all. It's just, again, it's such a tougher road than a year ago.
Last thing, who plays for the SEC championship and who wins?
Ooh, I'm going to go Georgia as one of the teams, mostly because of their schedule. I know people are kind of torn on Gunnar Stockton, but I was doing some team previews on my podcast earlier this week. If you look at Georgia's schedule, that's about as manageable as an SEC schedule as you can get, which they honestly probably deserve after the last couple of years. As the second one, I don't know, man. It's pretty wide open. I'm not as high on Texas as a lot of other people are. And there seems to be some weird vibes coming out of their preseason camp that I'm not really sure what to make of it. So I'll say Georgia and I'll go Oklahoma. I know that's kind of a trendy pick, but they're a really good defense, and Mateer cannot turn the ball over. They'll be a pretty good team. Wouldn't shock me if Ole Miss is in there, to be totally honest. But I'll go Georgia and Oklahoma.
Okay. Georgia, Oklahoma. I'm still not sold on Brent Venables.
I'm not really either, but that defense is pretty nasty.
Okay. Well, that's a specialty. So
100%.
But I still have to see out of them offensively, because the offense out of Oklahoma tends to disappear, and it puts that much more pressure on the defense. And look, I know they made the playoff last year. I know they had a good season. I want to see how they build on that. But again, I'm still not sold on Venables.
They pulled some shit out of their hat to make that playoff too. They won back-to-back road games at Tennessee and at Alabama.
Yep.
Neither were offensive masterpieces to your point by any means, but hey, you got to give them credit for doing it. But they were very close to like him being a hot seat guy, not making the playoff last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Brian Scott Rippey covering Ole Miss football. I think they're going to go 10-2. I think somehow they managed to go 3-2 in those particular 5. They win the rest, be 10-2. I'm not saying they're going to play for the SEC championship game, but I still think they'll probably make the playoffs. Sir, tell the people where they can read your material or listen to your podcast.
Yeah, Rippey Writes Podcast. I'm part of the MPW Digital Network, so you can find it there or just search Rippey Writes anywhere you get podcasts, do a newsletter on Substack, rippywrites.com. But I appreciate you having me as always, man. Happy to join.
All right, my man. Enjoy the season.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one. Brian Scott Rippey, ladies and gentlemen. Corey Lindsay chiming in again. Georgia Ole Miss loser of the first matchup gets revenge. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And since I had him on, I'll just pick it now. I think Georgia. I've got Georgia in the SEC title game, but the second pick might surprise you. I think they wind up playing Texas A&M. Nobody's talking about Texas A&M. And look, they had a fantastic year last year. They just shit the bed the last 2 games, and they'll learn from that. I think Georgia will play Texas A&M in the SEC title this particular year. But yeah, thanks to him coming on. But when you're looking at the Ole Miss schedule, Louisville, then Charlotte, they'll be 2-0. Then they're home against LSU. Somehow, some way. Corey Lindsay likes my pick for the SEC championship game. Yeah, I think that everyone's talking about LSU. They're talking about Texas. They're talking about Georgia. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. Texas A&M is slowly flying under the radar. Then Ole Miss is at Florida. Look, I think John Summerall is Billy Napier 2.0, but we'll have to see. Then they have a bye. Then they're at Vanderbilt. That's a win. They're home against Missouri. That's a win. Then they have to go to Texas. And like Brian Scott Rippey was saying, Sark is a great offensive mind. But when it comes to head coaching, he just, at the most inopportune times, he shits the bed. The Texas team is talent laden. They have NFL prospects across the board. But how are you going to coach them? We'll see. After they play Texas, then they're home against Auburn. That's a W. Home against Georgia. That's a rough one. Then they're at Oklahoma. And has anybody seen Oklahoma's offense the last couple of years? Then they play Wofford, poor Wofford. And then it's the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. So, and they'll win that. Hopefully coming up at 6:30 or a little bit past 6:30, it'll be the voice of Colorado Buffaloes football. Mark Johnson will be joining the program. I've got my Bible here, which is Phil Steele's College Football Preview 2026. And I always like to go to the section where he comes out with an experience chart of teams with the most experience coming back. So when I go to the SEC, Georgia has the most experience coming back, followed by Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Texas. So if you're looking at other teams in the SEC, LSU is third from last. Alabama's fourth from last. That's why I'm not really. Everyone's talking about Alabama, LSU. Alabama's lost 4 games in a row for 2 years. LSU, they're not all Lane Kiffin's guys. You don't know how that's going to work out. It's TBD, to be determined. When I go to the Big Ten, Maryland has the most experience coming back. Nebraska, UCLA, and Minnesota. Some teams that I had circled here: Ohio State and Indiana are middle of the pack with their experience coming back. Iowa, Penn State has the least. Michigan's down toward the bottom. Illinois is down toward the bottom. So I always go by the experience factor. The ACC, the most experience returning are Virginia and Pittsburgh. Some people are talking about Virginia and Pittsburgh. Look, Miami's probably going to win the ACC again, but there are people picking Virginia and Pittsburgh as possibly sleepers. I'm not talking Clemson. Clemson's middle of the pack with experience coming back. Miami, second least. The Pac-12, which is actually whatever, Pac-8. Boise State. Conference USA, the Blue Hens of Delaware. Over in the Big 12, BYU, Houston, Texas Tech, and Utah has the most experience coming back. And those are my 4 teams that are going to vie for the title this year. Some people are picking Kansas State. Forget it. I picked Kansas State the last couple of years to possibly win the Big 12, and it shit the bed. American Athletic Conference: Army, Florida Atlantic, Navy, and Texas San Antonio, which are the 4 teams that most people have vying for the title of that particular conference. Mountain West, Air Force. In fact, Phil Steele has Air Force as the #1 team with the most experience coming back in college football. New Mexico, UNLV's middle of the pack. I've got those 3 teams circled from the standpoint of I think Air Force, New Mexico, and UNLV will vie for the Mountain West Conference, because remember, Boise State's not there anymore. Wyoming's not there anymore. Or not Wyoming. I'm thinking of somebody else. Boise State and Fresno State. The MAC, Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan. I actually have Western Michigan winning that particular conference. Sun Belt Conference, Louisiana Monroe and Marshall are the 2 teams with the most experience. I will give you, because the AP comes out with their poll, coaches poll comes out. I'll give you Phil Steele's top 40 as he sees it. Actually, I'll go top 25. He has Washington 25. He's got Utah 24, Boise State 23rd, LSU 22nd. Again, not high on LSU. Tennessee's 21st, Navy, which could be a college football playoff content. He has 20th, Penn State 19th, Louisville 18th, Clemson 17th, Texas A&M he has down at 16th. He's got Michigan 15th, Ole Miss sitting at 14, Oklahoma 13. He got SMU. SMU might be a sleeper, also in the ACC. He has USC 11th. I still have to see it out of USC. He's got BYU 10th, Texas Tech 9th. Don't sleep on those Red Raiders, by the way. Alabama 8th, Miami 7th, Oregon 6th, Indiana 5th, Texas 4th, Ohio State, yes, 3rd. He has Georgia 2nd and Notre Dame 1st, only because of Notre Dame's horrible schedule. Just looking over some news and notes here. And nothing major. So there you have it. If Mark Johnson joins, we're almost at the bottom of the hour here. Let me go, if I can, to their schedule. I don't think Colorado's going to be very good, but you never know. So if we go over to Colorado's schedule, they open at Georgia Tech. I think they'll lose that one. When they play Weber State, it's a W. They're at Northwestern, tricky. At Baylor, winnable. Home against Texas Tech, that's homecoming. Who the hell would schedule Texas Tech on homecoming? They'll probably get bludgeoned. Home against Utah, so back to back. Texas Tech, Utah. They get Utah after the bye week. Probably double loss. And they're at Oklahoma State. It's winnable. Although people think that Oklahoma State are going to be much improved. Home against Kansas State. Toss up. Home against Houston. Houston might be another tough team. At Cincinnati, home against UCF. If they go 5-7 or 6-6, I think the fans will be pleasantly pleased there. So what I'm going to do is 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, and then I will be back. I'm just going to see if he pops in the green room real quick. Nothing yet. Hopefully, because I know he's busy. He's got a lot of stuff going on. But a little music, and I'll be right back.
What the dog doing? 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 What the dog doing?
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's lovely background music. But welcome to the 2026 College Football Preview Special here on the Redline Radio Network, out here at the Riverbend Cigar Lounge, Riverbend Cigar Lounge, Florence, New Jersey. Stop on by, get yourself a stick, bring your own beverage, whatever you drink, milk, tutti frutti, whatever your beverage choice is. Since we were covering the SEC, I've got Georgia winning the SEC. Everybody's talking about LSU, Miss, Texas and all these other teams, Georgia's sort of flying under the radar a little bit. They've been down the last couple of years. They've made some noise, but not up to Kirby Smart standards. I've got Georgia winning the SEC, and I think they'll play Texas A&M in the SEC championship game. Again, Texas, they still have to prove it. Still have to prove it. How's Arch Manning going to be this year? They are probably, maybe other than Notre Dame, have the most talent on any roster this year. I need to see it. And again, Sark, I've said this before, Sark and Kiffin, what have they actually won coaching? What have they actually won? Does Lane Kiffin ever won a national title? No. Sark ever won a national title? I don't think so. Maybe as assistants, but not as a head coach. According to Phil Steele here, and again, this is like my Bible I get every year, rather than going to different sites and printing off shit. He has Arkansas finishing dead last in the SEC. They're in a bit of a rebuild mode. He has Kentucky second to last. In fact, I'll do this. He has Georgia first. He has Texas second. Again, I still need to see that out of Texas. He has Alabama third. Again, last year they were 11-4, but they were whatever it was. 11-4 last year. Still need to see at Alabama though too. And you look at Alabama's schedule: East Carolina at Kentucky, home against Florida State, home against South Carolina. They should be 4-0 heading into Ole Miss, or sorry, Mississippi State. 1, 2, 3. They should be 5-0 heading into the Georgia game. We all know Kirby Smart. It doesn't matter who the coach is; he just have trouble with Alabama. Then they're at Tennessee. That's one of their rivals. Then Texas A&M and at LSU. 1, 2, 3, 4 straight games. They get a bye week, Halloween weekend. That's brutal. Brutal. So take a nice little puff on my CIGAR here. They could easily lose all 4. They could easily lose all 4. They make it through that stretch 2-2. They go 10-2. Maybe we're talking playoffs. Maybe. 4th, he has Oklahoma. Again, I have to see it. Their offense has been lackluster as their defenses have won them many games. But you go look at Oklahoma's schedule. UTEP, that's a win. And they're at Michigan. It's a tough place to play. And Kyle Whittingham's there now. That's a toss-up game for them. Home against New Mexico. Don't sleep on New Mexico this year or UNLV. Either one of those teams. Do not sleep on them in the Mountain West. At Georgia. So you got UTEP, at Michigan, home against New Mexico, at Georgia. They could easily be 2-2 after those first 4 games. And they get a bye. Then they have to play Texas. Followed up with Kentucky and Mississippi State, so they should win those. South Carolina, that's homecoming. Still don't know what I'm getting with South Carolina. At Florida, not easy. Home against Ole Miss, not easy. Home against Texas A&M, not easy. And then at Missouri. It's not an easy schedule for the Sooners. Then Ole Miss, which we just went over. And Texas A&M, and to me, they're a sleeper. And when you look at their schedule, you'll understand why. First 3 games: Missouri State, Arizona State, Kentucky. They should be 3-0 heading into the LSU game. After LSU, it's Arkansas at Missouri, and then the Citadel. At Alabama, tough. At South Carolina, we'll see. Then Tennessee at Oklahoma, and then they play Texas. Not easy. A little bit more manageable. Then he has Tennessee. Tennessee was 8-5 this year, or 8-5 last year. Probably be 8-5 last year, maybe sneaking 9-4 in there somewhere. After Tennessee, he has LSU. So he's, Phil Still's not high on LSU, as some people are. How's Lane Kiffin going to turn this program around from last year? Is it going to be a big turnaround? I don't know. If you look at LSU's schedule, it open with Clemson. We'll see. Home against Louisiana Tech. They'll win that one. And they're at Ole Miss. We know Ole Miss has revenge on their mind. Then home against Texas A&M. 3 out of the first 4 games are brutal. Then they get the powerhouse McNeese. Then they're at Kentucky, then home against Mississippi State, at Auburn. They get the bye, home against Alabama, home against Texas, at Tennessee, at Arkansas. That is a gauntlet. Then he has South Carolina. South Carolina had a season to forget last year. How are they going to be? How are they going to respond? And he has Auburn. Auburn again, trying to turn it around. And then he has my Gators. Not an easy schedule either. If the Gators go 6-6 or 7-5, I'll be happy. And he has Vanderbilt. Obviously, Vanderbilt had a storied season last year. I don't think they're going to have that kind of year this year. Then he has Missouri. I think Missouri's on the downside. And he has Mississippi State, Kentucky, and then Arkansas. Again, hopefully Mark Johnson will be on. Again, I understand that everybody is busy. Trying to adjust all my notes here. Some news and notes from World College Football today. The ACC, go figure, they've joined the other Power 4 conferences and pros from returning to college. And again, I said this the other day, we're just going to make shit up as we go along. So they don't like it. What's happening? Obviously, the judge said that anybody from the class of 2022 can get the 50-year eligibility. And of course, the conferences don't like it, so they're just going to say "fuck you," and that'd be the end of it. So, boo hoo! Tired of hearing about it. Bullshit. Vanderbilt, Mr. Blaze Berlowitz as their starter, week number 1 against Austin P. Freshman Jared Curtis, he will also play. So it looks like they're going to go dual quarterbacks against Austin P to see what they have. Oh yeah, the Big 12 joined that band. I'm tired of hearing about it. And of course, then the SEC had to add something. The SEC will suspend head coaches who add pro players coming back. So once you opened up Pandora's box, you can't put it back on. Boo. Reported by David Hale, ESPN. The ACC is expanding enhanced replay for the football games this year. Giving viewers an inside look at the full discussions and debates. I thought they did that last year. Okay. For anybody who cares, the Poinsettia Bowl is returning after a decade hiatus. Too many bowl games anyway. 42 bowl games, 84 teams, many bowl games. That's like 2/3 of college football team. Let's see what else.
What's up, bud? Jack.
FCS kicking off the college football campaign right now in the second. Youngstown is beating Mercyhurst 15-3. Let's see what our scores as soon as they come up here. In the second, Maine and Towson are scoreless. The first, Delaware State 7, Stony Brook 6. Ohio Dominican is beating Morehead State 14-3 as we speak. Hopefully again, Mark Johnson will be coming on. Again, he is the voice of Colorado Buffaloes. So hopefully he will be coming on. Let me just shoot him a text. Hopefully everything's okay. Should be busy getting ready for the season. Let me just double check, ladies and gentlemen. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's see. Well, like I said, the Bible here that I have, Phil Steele, went over his top 40. And he comes out with these little tidbits. Yes. He comes up with his rankings for each individual units for the season. So starting with the quarterbacks, he has UCLA as the 15th ranked unit, SMU 14th, Oklahoma State 13th. That's because Drew Mestermaker, he is there now. 12th, Indiana, again, rebuilding in the quarterback position. Utah 11th, Auburn 10th, Oklahoma 9th. Miami 8th, USC 7th, Notre Dame 6th, Ole Miss 5th with Trinidad Chambers. He has Georgia at 4th with Gunnar Stockton, obviously. Ohio State 3rd, Julian Sayin. Texas, obviously, with Arch, and Oregon with Dante Moore. Those are the top 15. The running back room, he has Ole Miss 15th, Auburn 14th, Michigan 13th, Boise State 12th, Ohio State 11th, Florida State 10th, USC 9th, Oregon 8th, Texas Tech 7th, Georgia 8th, Florida 5th, Miami 4th, Louisville 3rd, Texas 2nd, and Missouri 1st. And as I speak, I see him in the green. Just let me get to my gotta get to my notes here. Let me go here. Let me go here. I know I have them somewhere. But before I bring them on, I always have to do this. Let me get to it. No, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you recognize that, that is the University of Colorado fight song. I can see him. He is traveling. Let me bring him on there. There he is, the voice of the Colorado Buffaloes, Mark Johnson. Mark, thanks for joining the program.
Hey, Ryan, how are you? Sorry, it's been a crazy week, and I'm doing 100 things at once, and so it's good to be on with you.
Thanks so much. Let's just get into it here.
You
What
bet.
have you heard from summer camp? Look, last year 3-9. Anything is an improvement over last year, obviously. But what are you hearing coming out of summer camp? What particular units are impressing so far in summer camp?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was on a show this morning, and the guy asked me a similar question, and I said, I think the number one thing that's impressed me so far has been the offensive line, and that's a good thing. You consider the last 3 years, the first 3 years, let's put it that way, of Deion Sanders. And they've had a lot of things that have been good, but the one thing they have not had was a consistent offensive line. Just last week, I walked off the field with Gunnar White, one of the offensive line coaches, and he and I were talking about, where they're developing, where they're coming along. And I said to him, how do you feel right now compared to a year ago? And he said, we're considerably better. And he thinks they're going to be very consistent. He likes the strength of this team. He likes the strength of that unit. And some may say, well, you lose a guy like Jordan Seaton. How can he be a better offensive line losing a potential first-round draft pick? However, I think as a unit, they're better. I'm not saying they got a better player than Jordan Seaton. But as a unit, this group's going to be better. And Ryan, I'll say this. I think that this system is going to help that offensive line a lot. When you sit down and talk with Brendan Marriott, the offensive line coach, he'll tell you that this is an offensive line-friendly offense. And what I mean by that, there's not nearly the mental gymnastics that these guys are going to have to do that maybe you do in other systems, because you're coming off the line as if it's a run play virtually every single snap. And so it simplifies it. Now the reads are made behind them then. It's determined whether it's going to be a run or a pass. And so when you talk to those offensive linemen, they all say the same thing. They said, I can play very aggressive in this system. And so I think that's a positive for this team. I'm not saying they're going to be the best line in the Big 12. I just think it's much improved from where it was certainly last year, really over the last 3 years here at Colorado.
How's the quarterback play looking?
Well, that's Julian Lewis. I mean, that's who it's going to be.
Right.
It's his job. Right. And, I think when you look at Julian, he's got all the tools. He throws a beautiful football. He moves very well. He's not a running quarterback. He's a passing quarterback who can run. This system generally, when you've seen what Brendan Marriott has done with his system at previous stops, the quarterbacks run a lot. Now, Brendan will tell you that that's not a necessity, but it's an option in this offense. And so I think they'll probably pull back on that a little bit. I don't think you're going to see him running a lot. There are some option aspects to this offense where he's going to have to be mobile, but I don't think they're going to run him a considerable amount. But I like what you see from him. He looks like a high-level quarterback, the way he throws the ball, the way he carries himself. Now, the question is that going to translate to the field? That we don't know. There are a lot of talented guys that don't become great quarterbacks because it just doesn't translate. I think it's going to, and I hope it's going to. And then go back to what we just talked about, playing behind what I think is going to be a pretty solid offensive line. That all bodes well for a young quarterback. And so that's why I'm bullish on this offense for Colorado going into this season.
Talk to me about the other side of the ball. Obviously, in offenses, their best weapon is a good defense to sort of keep them off the field a little bit. But we all know how the defense played last year. They had spurts, but there were other times where they just looked awful. Is there any sort of improvement on either the front end or the back end that you're looking forward to seeing?
Well, I think as I analyze that defense, and again, it's kind of funny. You get this deep into camp and you start questioning, am I seeing what I think I see? Because it's the same guys going against the same guys every day. I do think they're talented on the back end. I think Cree Thomas the Notre Dame transfer is a star in the making. I'm telling you, he's a second-year guy. He looks the part. He carries himself that way. The way Prime talks about him, you can tell he thinks he's an NFL guy. And I think, he'll be one of the mainstays back there. I think in the back end, but that shouldn't surprise us. Every team that Deion's had here has had a great secondary to some degree. I mean, there's been NFL guys back there every single year. And so I think that unit is solid. Might be better than that. We'll wait until the season begins. I think the linebacking core is athletic, and I think they move well. Gideon Lampron, the kid that, his middle name's ESPN. Everyone's heard so much about him. There's a kid named Martinez. Lufau is another one that transferred in. There's about 5 or 6 guys that I think are very active linebackers. Now, here's the question for me. What they've got up front is athletic, but it's not the largest defensive line you're going to see. Samu, and I'll probably try and get his name correct. I'm still working on it for the game next week. Tamamanapua is his name, a big Polynesian kid who's a monster kid. He weighs 375 pounds or something. He's the outlier. They moved Quincy Wiggins inside, who's about 6'5", and about 265, 270, and that's the kind of athletes they've got in it. Now, they're very athletic, and they move very well. If they can hold up and eat up the blocks up front and allow those linebackers in that second level to really run, I think they've got a chance, but if those guys up front aren't holding up and those linemen are getting through there and they're starting to take up those linebackers, then there's going to be some problems back there. That's what they saw a year ago. That defensive front did not play well a year ago. But if that unit plays well, I like the athleticism in the second, third levels of that defense.
I was looking back over the schedule again. Now they open with Georgia Tech. Obviously, that's going to be a tough game. I think we went over the schedule before you were on. Weaver State, which it's step up in competition for them. I'm not saying they're not a good lesser program. Then they're at Northwestern. Northwestern is obviously rebuilding. At Baylor, I still think that's a winnable game for them. The Texas Tech game will be tough. Then they have, is it UCF? No, Utah. That's tough. At Oklahoma State. Obviously, Oklahoma State they have Mester Maker now. Kansas State, Arizona State, Houston, Cincy, UCF. It's not an easy schedule by any means. But if the ball bounces the right way in a couple of these games, like I said before, maybe 6-6 would be a successful year for Colorado this year.
Well, I think that first game's really an important contest for them on setting a tone, right? You got to go on the road against Georgia Tech. Now they played them close a year ago, albeit Georgia Tech turned the ball over 3 times early in that ball game. It was a one touchdown game. So that was a game they could have and probably should have won in hindsight. So you go there, they're a different team. Haynes King's no longer the quarterback, new quarterback. Obviously, they like to run the football. They want to be physical, and so that'll be a great test for that defensive front we were just talking about. Now, you can get out of there with the win. If you're able to do that, the hot and humid nights in Atlanta on a Thursday night on September 3rd, then you come home. You should win an FCS game, obviously. Then, as you mentioned, Northwestern. So there's an opportunity here early. You got a couple of tough ones, but if you can get in that first 5, if you can come out at 3-2, I think you feel pretty good about the season by that point. Now, this is also the kind of schedule where you can come out 1-5, and you don't want to be that, right? And so that first game is going to be awful important, I think, for Colorado.
I've got them going possibly 6-6, potentially making a bowl game. The Georgia Tech game, you're obviously going to be at that game, obviously. What are you going to be looking for early on in the Georgia Tech game?
Well, I think go back to what we were just talking about. Georgia Tech's going to run the football. Can that defensive front hold up? And I think that's going to be the first. I think the offensive defensive lines are the obvious ones. And then obviously Juju, being a first-year starter, it's his team, all that kind of thing, even though he started a couple of games a year ago. But those offensive and defensive fronts, is that offensive line what I think it is? And is that defensive line going to be able to hold up physically? And that'll be a great test in that first game for that defensive front. That's the first thing I'm watching for. Is that unit able to hold up and give those linebackers a chance to make some plays, the guys in the back end of that defense? I think that is, and I know I'm not breaking any ground here. We always look at the trenches, but I think it's supremely important for Colorado considering where they were and what they've tried to do with those units going into this season.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mark Johnson. Just a footnote here, Mark. I may be coming out for the Colorado-Houston game.
All right.
I think it's, November 13th, I believe, Friday night game. My cousin and his wife live out there. She's a Colorado Buffalo grad. So I may be coming out there for that particular game. And maybe, who knows, maybe I'll bump into you.
Well, make sure you let me know, and we'll get you up on the booth. And that's a ball game, by the way. When the game ends, I'm hitting the airport because the basketball team plays the next day in Providence. So you know how November gets for us play-by-play guys. That'll be a busy one, but make sure you let me know that you're coming on out.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the game next week.
All right, Ryan. See you.
Have a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mark Johnson. Look, Colorado, when I take a look at the schedule, and the Georgia Tech game is going to be tough. You can't beat your state, then just might as well quit. At Northwestern, winnable. At Baylor, winnable. Texas Tech game will be tough. Utah will be tough. At Oklahoma State, it'll be tough. Kansas State, it's not easy. It's not an easy schedule whatsoever. Period. But thanks to Mark for popping on there. I know he's a busy guy. I see he just popped into the green. With each guest, I've got to do a proper introduction. Dylan Sin is sitting there patient, but I've got to do this, as I do with each and every guest here on the Tech Football Club. We're going to do the Notre Dame one. No Notre Dame. Yes, the defending national champions, those Indiana Hoosiers, looking to repeat. If you haven't recognized it, ladies and gentlemen, obviously it's a fight song for the University of Indiana. But there he is, Mr. Dylan popping on here from the Journal Gazette. Dylan, thanks for joining the program.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Let's just jump into it here with Indiana. Let me go to my notes. Obviously, a season to remember. Signetti's on top of the world, Mendoza moves to the Raiders, XYZ. Now you got to retool a little bit coming off that season last year. What are you hearing in summer camp as it pertains offensively and defensively? Offensively, obviously, the quarterback needs to be replaced. And then defensively, you got some guys coming back because of the fifth year thing. But what are you hearing coming out of summer camp and how these the offense and the defense are starting to mesh?
Yeah, I mean they like what they have, right? Obviously, you talked about it there. The highlight, the headliner is the quarterback, Josh Hoover, coming in from TCU, one of the most experienced and most prolific quarterbacks in the country over the last couple of years. We'll see how he does. They're going to take a lot off his plate, though. They're going to make things as easy for him as possible with a good run game and a good offensive line, right? That's the idea behind this. Is that they have several good running backs they really like. They got Turbo Richard from Boston College, who they like. They have a couple of good receivers, including Nick Marsh, who they got from Michigan State, and then Charlie Becker obviously returns. So I think those guys are both juniors. And then offensive line, they bring back 3 or 4 starters, depending on how you want to determine that. So they like how they like the offense, and then defense. They are replacing a lot in the front seven, a fair amount in the front seven, especially in the edges. And that's what you were talking about there with the fifth year guys. They have a couple of guys that they brought back who became eligible because of that fifth year, who were very good for them last year. Kellen Wyatt and Stephen Daly combined for, I think it was 27 tackles for loss last season. Unfortunately, for IU, those guys are ineligible right now. If the season started today, they'd be ineligible. So we'll see if that changes with the Colorado court case. But they have a couple of all-conference linebackers back. They have an all-conference safety, a very good cornerback. So they feel like they have 11 or 12 starters back. They feel like they have a very high floor. And then as some of these transfers hit, you start to say, hey, we can be an elite team again.
How is Cignetti and the coaching staff approaching this year, coming off of what they did last year? Because it's hard to get yourself back up when you've been to the pinnacle. Obviously, you want to repeat. Different players, some the same, but some are different, especially at the quarterback position. How is he approaching this year? Are they saying, forget last year, it's done, it's over? But you know how players can be sometimes, tapping themselves on the shoulders. You know, we're the premier program in the country now. How has he sort of been able to put a lid on that kind of attitude going into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the culture they built over the last couple of years is what they would like, is what they would say in that scenario, right? Like they feel like they have the type of team and the type of guys in their program that are not going to rest on their laurels in that way. And part of it, this offseason was interesting because they played so many games last year. They played so deep into January. They didn't have much of an offseason. Like compared it to a normal season, they had much less of an offseason to get healthy and practice and work. And so they had to focus a lot on, hey, we got to get ready for the season. There's no time to rest because once we get back in January, we're already behind, right? And so they really did flip a switch from, by all accounts, from the players to the coaches, the coordinators, to everybody. They said, we flipped a switch, we've moved on, we are no longer thinking about last season. And so all indications are that they've really been able to get over that hurdle. We'll see what happens when the season starts.
It's awful. Remember, it was an actual time.
What are you going to be looking for in the first 2 or 3 games on both sides of the ball? Are you looking for improvement? Are you looking for guys to step in and take over for guys that have left? It's always interesting to me the first 2 or 3 games. Look, they played North Texas, Howard. Yes, Western Kentucky is a good football program by their standards. But those first 3 games, and you have the Northwestern game, and then at Rutgers, at Nebraska, they should be undefeated going into that Ohio State game. But they always circle the first 3 games of the year to say, okay, what are they doing the same as they did last year? are they throwing any other wrinkles this year that they didn't have last year?
Yeah, the one of the things I'm interested in is how often they play three linebackers. Because right now they lost Aiden Fisher, who was kind of their leader on defense last year, the quarterback of their defense. They have a guy they like
Right.
there in Isaiah Jones. They have Elijah Hardy, who's a preseason All-American at that position. So you have two really good players at that linebacker spot, but you don't have the three superstars that you had there last year, at least not yet. We'll see how many three linebacker fronts they play. Do they play more 5-2? Do they play more 4-3? We'll see what happens. Obviously, they like to move fronts around and things like that. But that's one thing I'm looking for. The other thing is, what are they doing at corner? They bring back Jamari Sharp, who people might remember made the game-winning interception in the national championship game last year. Very, very good player. But you lose D'Angelo Ponce, who was one of the best corners in the country last season. So you have Jamari Sharp, and then you need to figure out what you're doing on the other side of the field, right? And so they have a couple of guys competing there. AJ Harris from Penn State is a former five-star recruit, really good player, but had a down season last year. And then Rylan Gandy was a transfer from Pitt, who was kind of a little bit down in the depth chart last season. So we'll see what happens there. Those guys have been going back and forth in camp, and I'm interested to see how that second cornerback spot plays out and whether Jamari Sharp is ready to handle the number one cornerback role matching up against everyone's best receiver.
I think there's something.
Going back over the schedule, Dylan, I've got 5 games circled, and they're in consecutive order. Ohio State, at Michigan, home against Minnesota, the USC game, and then at Washington. I've got those 5 games either making or breaking the season. Obviously, they beat Ohio State last year. They're not afraid of Ohio State. At Michigan might be a little bit tougher because Kyle Whittingham's there now. They're not going to be as soft as they were last year. The Minnesota game it's homecoming. You would expect them to beat Minnesota. Then they get to bye. The USC game is intriguing, but again, I still have to see out of a Lincoln Riley coach team at USC. I haven't seen it yet. And then they're at Washington, which is kind of a tricky place to play. But those 5 games I have circled. They're going to beat North Texas. They're going to beat Howard. They're going to beat Western Kentucky. They're going to beat Northwestern. They're going to beat Rutgers. They're going to beat Nebraska. And look, Purdue doesn't really have a football program anymore because they've been so bad. Out of those 5 games that I mentioned that I have circled, which ones to you are the most iffy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Ohio State one is one to circle, right? Like that having that game in Bloomington after what happened in the Big Ten championship last year, where they played just a ridiculously good football game on both sides there, and IU ended up winning by a field goal. Getting them in Bloomington this year it's going to be maybe the best environment in the history of that stadium. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And then you get USC, I believe, coming to Bloomington a couple of weeks later. That's later in the season. You don't know what the weather is going to be like. You don't know what USC is going to be like at that point in the season. And so we'll see how that goes. Those are the 2 that I really have circled. If you split those, to me, you feel really good about your chances to get into the college football playoff. If you win both, you're probably getting a bye in the playoff. You're as the top 4 seed. So we'll see what happens. But I am really intrigued by both of those games because those teams had uber athletes in a way that IU has some, but not covering the roster like those 2 teams do. And so we'll see whether IU still has the horses to go against.
What's your prediction for Indiana this year? What do they finish, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's 9-3 or 10-2. I don't think that they're going 16-0 again. I think at 10-2 they get in the playoff, and then they'll have a chance to win a first round game. Maybe my guess is quarterfinal appearance in the playoff for them. Which again, terrific season. I just think for me, there's less on the meat on the bone to get from Josh Hoover. He's already kind of what he is, where there was a bigger gap for Fernando Mendoza between what he was coming to IU and what he could be. I think that gap is smaller for Josh Hoover. So I think the offense has a lower ceiling this year. But we'll see. There's a lot of talent on that roster, and they could surprise us again.
Before I go on to the next thing here, who's playing for the Big Ten championship? Who wins?
Yeah, I think it's Ohio State and Oregon. I think probably that neither of those teams loses the game in conference play outside of the game they play against each other. And so unless someone else goes undefeated in league play, I think they'll probably be fine. I think they end up getting a rematch in that title game.
Let me just jump to Notre Dame here real quick because a lot of them are picking Notre Dame to win the title. Notre Dame is loaded. Notre Dame is look. I'm still not sold on CIGAR. Still not sold on him for whatever reason. I just haven't seen enough of him to make a determination, even though I think he played okay last year. But look, the schedule. I mean, I've got SMU, Miami, and BYU circled. Look, the Miami game is everything. We can bring back the Catholics and convicts conversation, I guess. I don't know. SMU is not going to be any slouch. They are going to be a good ACC football team this year. And then a lot of people have BYU making a playoff. Either them or Texas Tech winning the Big 12. I've got those 3 games circled here on Notre Dame's schedule.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. I would also not be surprised if Wisconsin is better than people think they're going to be. Notre Dame
Okay.
always with Wisconsin. They put some money into that roster this offseason. Rather than firing Luke Fickell, they were like, hey, let's put some resources into the roster rather than paying a buyout. I think they'll be better this year, so I don't think that game is going to be a walk in the park either. But yeah, the game, it does come down to a couple of games for Notre Dame. I've been under the impression or under the expectation that they don't get in the playoff at 10-2. My guess is it's 11-1 or 12-0 or they're out, kind of like last year. And so I think they know that. Going into the season, they know that, and they worked a lot this offseason on getting off to a hot start and then building toward those games, BYU and Miami in October and November, and feeling good about yourself at that point.
Looking over the Notre Dame team this year, Dylan, because you're in the thick of it out there. We can only read what's in magazines and stuff like that. How loaded is this Notre Dame team compared to, like, let's say the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I think it's more loaded on defense. I think they
Okay.
have just about everybody back in their back 7, like their linebackers and defensive backs. Almost everyone is back, and that was one of the better groups in the country at the end of last season. They feel really, really good about that. The defensive front, they feel extremely good about. They're very deep. They brought in a couple of transfers at defensive tackle, Tio Gray from Oregon and Francis Brew from Pitt. Brew is a monster. They love him. So they like their defense a lot. They think they can be a top 2 or 3 defense in the country. Offense comes down to, like you said, how much can CJ Carr handle, right? Because last year you had Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are running back to lean on, right? They don't have those guys this year. They have good running backs, not great ones, and they have decent receivers, not good ones. And so, okay, how much can CJ Carr handle? How much can he take on his shoulders? Because he's going to have a very good offensive line, and you think he played well last year. Can he take that leap to make this an elite offense to pair with what they believe is an elite defense? We'll see. That is the big question of the offseason for Notre Dame.
What's Notre Dame's final regular season record, do you think?
I think it's 11-1. I think they lose to one of Miami or BYU. I don't think they win both. We'll see how it goes. Getting Miami at home obviously really helps, but this team is not going to be measured by how it does in the regular season. This season will be a disappointment for them if they don't not only make the playoff, but win multiple games in the playoff, however much that goes. I don't think the fan base is thinking we need to win a national championship or this is a total failure. But if you're ousted in the quarterfinals, that's not what the season was for. The whole point is we need to make a run this season.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dylan Sid, the Journal Gazette. Before I let you go, because I didn't do it with the first 2 guests and I forgot. Which 2 teams are playing for the national title and who wins the national title?
That's a great question. I think it's Oregon, and I actually would pick Notre Dame. I think those are the 2 to me. Yeah, I think Oregon wins. I think Oregon is the most complete team in the country. They don't really have a hole on that roster. Maybe the offensive line a little bit. We'll see. But I think it's Oregon that makes it 4 for 4 to the Big Ten.
All right, that's Dylan Sin, ladies and gentlemen. Dylan, thanks for joining the program. I know you're busy. You'll have to be picking your brain throughout the season.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thanks for having me on, as always.
All right, my man. Have a good one. Good friend of the program, Dylan Sin. It's been a little while since we talked. Hey, look, it'd be messed up if Indiana played for that. And yeah, just hopefully coming up at 7:30. Got some storms blowing through. You see it freezing stuff like that. We just got like covers up and stay full. I'm gonna take a little break. That you see all the screens flickering and stuff. So we just do this down here. My screens are starting to freeze. I will be
That Saturday's here, the lights are bright. College football's taking flight. From the kickoff to the final fight, we're running student body right. Helmet on, crowd going wild. Every campus ready to get riled. Big time plays and rivalry pride. Ryan F's got the football right. Rankings rise, rankings fall. Every Saturday somebody's got a call. Touchdowns flying, defenses collide. Strap it up, student body
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The college football 2026 preview here on the Red Line Radio Network. Everybody, right? Your host, Ryan. Here at the Riverbank Yellow Lounge, Florence, New Jersey, your local select stars. Come on down, grab a stick, bring your milk, your whiskey, your beer, DY, or whatever. Thanks for the quartet there with the music. But welcome. If anybody's wondering, the football championship series, the FCS, they are kicking off their season today, and there is a crap load of games today. Let me just go over some scores right now. In the second, Maine is up on Towson 21-6. Delaware State up on Stony Brook 24-6. Youngstown State up on Mercy 23 in the second. In the second, Ohio Dominican over Morehead State 14-9. In the first, Elon is up on Glenville State 7-0. In the first, Eastern Illinois and Murray State are scoreless. In the first, Georgetown up on Lafayette 3-0. In the first, Gardner Webb over Austin P 3-0. In the first, Charleston Southern and Lindenwood are scoreless. In the first, Northwestern of Iowa up on Western Illinois 7-0. All these games scoreless. Chattanooga, West Georgia scoreless in the first. UVA, Wise, and Presbyterian delayed, probably because of the storms. Winona State and St. Thomas are scoreless. Houston Christian and Southeast Louisiana scoreless. These are all in the first, by the way. Anderson, South Carolina, Furman scoreless. Mississippi Valley State and Nickers are scoreless. Southern Illinois up on West Florida 3-0 in the first. Concord down to Davidson 7-0 in the first. Later on, Central Arkansas at UT Martin, South Dakota State. As soon as it comes back up here. Of course, my screen is frozen. South Dakota State at Drake, Long Island University at North Dakota, and Louisiana Christian at Northwestern State. Talking about the Big Ten earlier. I have Ohio State playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, and Ohio State playing. Now, are there dark horses? Well, not dark horses. Indiana's going to be in the mix. Some people have USC being in the mix in the Big Ten. I don't know. I still have to see it. Michigan and Penn State, Kyle Whittingham and Matt Campbell being there. We'll see. Washington. Again, I'm going to pencil Iowa in. I say it every year. If they can just get some sort of semblance of quarterback play, they're going to make some noise. But we'll see. Again, coming up at 7:30, Scott Wright, who covers Oklahoma State football. Let me go to the Big 12. A lot of people prognosticated they had Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Houston. And I agree with that. I think those 4 teams will fight the Big 12 championship. I would just go on record now saying I think Texas Tech will win the Big 12. If you look at their schedule, it is completely manageable. They've got to play Houston. It's at home September 18th. At Cincinnati could be a tricky one, but they'll beat them. Home against Arizona, home against West Virginia. Those are W's. At Oklahoma State, at Baylor might be tricky. They're far superior. I would even say that Texas Tech's going to go undefeated in the regular season. BYU, maybe not as much because they have to play Miami. Of course, there's the holy war between them and Utah. I'm sorry, BYU is going to play Notre Dame, not Miami. Really, their toughest games on their schedule: Utah, Notre Dame, and that's it. So BYU could go 11-1. You might throw Utah in there. Their schedule may be a little bit tougher. Looking over it, not much. They've got to play Houston, but that's at home. BYU, the Holy War is at home, and that's it. Then we'll go to Houston as soon as I get to them. Houston, you got to play Texas Tech. That's a tough one. They're at Kansas State. Tough. Cincinnati, maybe. I don't know. Those are the 4 teams that I had penciled in. I still think Texas Tech is going to win it. I think Kansas State's going to be down this year. Some people have Kansas State maybe making some noise. I don't see it. I just don't. Some people have maybe Oklahoma State making a little bit of noise, and I still have to see it. But Oklahoma State is going to be improved, just not that much. We'll see. Still have to see it on field. And it's still August. Again, Saturday. Let me go to the games on Saturday, by the way. In fact, I'll run down the top 25 for this weekend. Three o'clock on NBC, number 14 USC hosts San Jose State. USC is favored 38.5. 38.5. Remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, San Jose State gave USC a scare. Might have been last year. And USC had to come back. Do I think they're going to cover the 38.5? No. I'll go USC 48, San Jose State 13. Then Thursday next week, September the 3rd, 25 Missouri hosts Arkansas Pine Bluff. Okay, whatever. Missouri State with 4.5. The over 6.5. I take Missouri. Watch the points. I'll go Missouri 49, Arkansas Pine Bluff 3. Then at 9 p.m. next week on the 3rd, ESPNU, number 21, Utah hosts Idaho. Utah favored by 33.5. Idaho might not score. I'll go Utah 49, Idaho nothing. Next Friday, for 10, Oklahoma, they play UTEP. Oklahoma favored by 41.5. UTEP probably won't score. Oklahoma 44. The next Friday, number 9, Miami will be hosting Stanford. Or no, Miami's at Stanford. Miami. Miami 24.5 point favorite. Miami 31, Stanford nothing. And next Friday, 9 o'clock on Fox. Number 14 hosting Fresno State. USC favored by 22.5. Oh, not that game. I'll wait. But again, coming up at 7:30, there it is. Just popped into the green. Been a while since he and I have spoken. But of course, I always have to do this. He'll recognize it. Oklahoma State. I Just a season to forget last year. Of course, Mike Gundy's gone. I'm a man. You all remember that? Like that was like 19 years ago. I'm a man. Talk to me. I'm 40 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, covering Oklahoma State football. Mr. Scott Wright. Scott, thanks for joining the program, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. So look, it can't get any worse, can it? Other than going 0-12, which is not going to happen this year. But look, Mike Gundy gone. Again, just a season to forget. How's the team looking summer camp wise? Look, they got to improve offensively. Obviously, they got to improve in every area. But which side of the ball needs to improve more than the other this year?
Well, at this point, you would say the defense. I mean, if you're comparing to last year, it's hard to even compare because they were so different on both sides of the ball. But you look at what Eric Morris has brought in now. He brings in an offense that has a ton of pieces already in place, and then he's added more Power 4 talent to that group. So you feel a lot of confidence in what he's done on the offensive side of the ball. You look at defense. It's more of a work in progress. Skylar Cassidy, the defensive coordinator, is going to have his hands full in a more traditional rebuild than what Morris is facing on the offensive side. So you look at the program right now, and they're confident in what they've done, but we're going to have to see it on the field. Whereas the offense, a little bit more about what you're getting.
Talk to me about Mester Maker. I hear all the hype. I've seen all the clippings, X, Y, and Z. Is he the real deal? Obviously, I have not seen him play at all. But is he the real deal coming in to try and pick up this offense for the Cowboys?
It's hard to say. He certainly looks the part. He's got the big frame, the strong arm. He seems incredibly accurate in what we've seen. I mean, you go back through spring and preseason camp, and I've maybe seen him in 25 to 30, 11 on 11 reps. So, I mean, it's not a ton. And I had the spring game. I got to count that. And then that, he had a decent number of throws in that. But just in practice, we don't get to see a ton. We get to see more than we did under Mike Gundy, but not as much as I would like. I'd be there for the whole thing if they'd let me in. But what I've seen from him is legit. He really looks the part. I don't know if he's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, but I definitely think that he's a guy that has a pro future and has a chance to put up some really good numbers in this offense this season.
Let me go back to last year a little bit. Obviously, it went sideways for Gundy, and he gets canned. Did the players, did they rally around that, or do you think they just said, you know what? It is what it is. We'll just do the best we can, and we'll see where the cards lay.
Yeah, it was kind of a mix. I mean, you saw some guys jump in the portal right away because they were at the 3-game mark. So, some guys rolled for one more week and then jumped in the portal. You had some guys that you felt kind of just cashed it in and collected their check, but not a lot. I would say the buy-in level from the guys that remained was pretty good, and that was mostly because they knew they were auditioning for their next job. Whatever they put on tape the rest of the year was going to be out there for all these other coaches to look at. So it did become a little bit more, me over we a little bit, but I don't think that wasn't why they went 1-11 or went 0 for whatever after Gundy was fired. It was just a poorly put together roster and coaching staff in general, and that was the downfall of the team. But you really did see a lot of guys that remained committed because they knew what was at stake for themselves.
I like that. What does Eric Morris bring to the table now that we start a new regime that maybe Mike Gundy was lacking like that last year and a half that he was with the program?
I'll say this. There's a lot of differences between the two of them. Eric Morris is a very detail-oriented guy. He looks back at the success that he had building a program at Incarnate Word, the success that he had at North Texas, and now he's taking what he learned from all of those things and really has a very big but also very detailed plan of how he wants to build a program. And so he is implementing that. And the attention to detail is certainly something that sticks out. Whereas, Gundy was a little bit of a, I don't want to say he didn't have attention to detail, but he was, willing to divert from a plan a little bit more so than Morris seems to be. A little bit of a wild card at times with Gundy, which we all kind of. It was really one of his most endearing qualities, if you're being honest about it. So you look at the way that Morris is building this program in terms of how he. It's been fascinating because he is much more open and honest than really any college football coach that I've ever interacted with. So we'll see. Maybe that changes. If they start 2-2 and things feel a little bit different, maybe he buttons things up a little bit more. But right now, he's willing to talk about position battles in a way that Mike Gundy never would, or talk about what he sees from Drew Mestamaker in practice and doing different things that we really haven't seen from Mike Gundy in terms of how he interacts with the media.
So he said Amanda works for was in there.
I normally ask this of coaches that are taking over programs. I ask guys like you, look, fans across the country now, they're going to look at what Cignetti did in Indiana, and they're going to say, why can't we do like that here at Oklahoma State? Why can't we do something like that at Northwestern? Why can't we do something like that down there, like maybe Virginia? What temperament are the fans in Stillwater going to have, especially with this regime taking over? Because for a lot of years, they got spoiled under Gundy. Maybe he didn't win the big game, but he won a lot of games there. Maybe they got spoiled a little bit. How patient are the fans in Stillwater going to have to be with Eric Morris as their new head coach?
I think that they're prepared to be the right amount of patient. I'm sure there'll be some folks that the first time they go 3-and-out against Tulsa, they're going to panic. But and that Oregon game's going to be tough. It's going to be it's got a chance to be ugly. So there's going to be some people that that are typical fans in that situation. But for the most part, I think this program understands the task that Eric Morris has in front of him, taking over a team that hasn't won a Big 12 game since late 2023, November of 23. So you've got I think the right approach in terms of the vibe that I'm getting from the fans. Now there's two things. There's the detractors are typically the people that feel like he's just brought in a bunch of North Texas guys and it's just North Texas 2.0 and are kind of discounting some of the players because they're coming from a group of 6 program. And I think you look at Cignetti and what he did with bringing guys from James Madison, and you can
we couldn't do that on our own.
If you put the pieces around them, you can make this work. I'm not saying that Morris is going to go win a title in year 2. But I do think that he sees the blueprint that Kurt Cignetti has laid out for everyone that's trying to do the same thing. Bring in a culture and bring in talent and coaches and the core of a program and transfer it from one place to another and be able to take those next steps that you have to do at the Power 4 level.
Step is that I need to do.
I'm going back over the schedule again here, and they're at Tulsa. Now, based off what I saw last year, they should beat Tulsa. Shouldn't they? Home against Oregon, going to be ugly. Home against Murray State, I got that penciled in as a W. At West Virginia, I have as a toss-up.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what we're getting out of West Virginia. Then they get the bye week, then they're home against UCF again. Still don't know what I'm getting with UCF. I got that as a toss-up. At Houston's going to be tough.
Yeah,
because I got Houston as one of those bubble teams that might challenge for like the Big 12 or maybe even a football playoff. Then they get homecoming against Colorado. I'm not sold on Dion. I'm not sold on what they're doing there with the program. At Iowa State, Matt Campbell's gone. Winnable at Kansas State. Kansas State hasn't really been anything special over the last couple of years. The Texas Tech game will be tough. At Arizona State's always tricky. Then home against Kansas. 5-7-ish. Maybe if the ball bounces this way, maybe 6-6. I don't see why that couldn't be attainable.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. It's weird because they got some good breaks with how the schedule lined up in terms of having a chance to maybe build some momentum early, but they also got a bad break in that some of those toss-up games you mentioned, West Virginia, Kansas State, Iowa State, Arizona State, all on the road. If you had a couple of those games on the home field, I feel a little bit differently about the schedule, but I do think they've got some home games where they can go build some confidence, like UCF Colorado there in October, and then that November stretch is going to be rough. At those road games, Tech at home, Kansas at the end of the season when you see where you stand at that point. But so I like the fact that they can maybe build some momentum early in this schedule, and then you see what happens in those toss-up games. See what you can go do on the road.
I mean, they can go 3-1 the first 4 games,
Mm-hmm.
other than the Oregon game, and then you get the bye to try and get healthy again and take a breather. You got UCF, that could be 4-1, and at Houston, like you said, there's a little bit of a gauntlet there at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Again, I've got that written down here: 5-7, possibly 6-6. So fans would take it 6-6 in a bowl game after what happened last year. Yeah, they would take that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
I would say the majority of the fans, in terms of the ones that I interact with and have heard from, I think if this team is in a bowl game at the end of the year, they're going to be pretty pleased with the way things are going.
I'm going to put you on a spot here. Who plays for the Big 12 title, and who wins the Big 12?
Oh man, I've got similar feelings to you about Houston. I think they could be a little bit of a party wrecker there. So I tell you what, I'm gonna throw them in there. I'm gonna say Texas Tech and Houston in the title game. I'm not ready to go against Texas Tech in that situation yet. I really like what they've got on defense, especially, and so I'm gonna go with Texas Tech. But I think Houston is in that game.
Before I let you go, I forgot to check with my other guests here. The whole 5th year thing, and now the Power 4 has said, well, anybody that's been in the NFL, they can't come and play. Look, you're in the thick of it in the Big 12. Did presidents, ADs, commissioners, did they not think of these possible scenarios like years ago when NIL was introduced and the transfer portal and all this mess? Did they not think that like scenarios like this would come about, or is it just that we're in the day and age where, well, we'll deal with it when it comes up, and then we'll start making rules, by the fly by the seat of your pants rules? What do you hear in the Big 12?
I really, it does really kind of feel like there were certain things that were just kind of not in people's minds as possibilities. I don't. Maybe they were closed off to some of these things, like a guy going to an NFL camp and getting cut when he still has a year of eligibility and trying to come back. And I mean, and the whole amateurism thing. Once you eliminate that from what you're actually doing at the college level, it opens you up to these things. And I mean, I wouldn't have really considered this either, probably. So I'm not trying to knock those guys, because I probably wouldn't have thought of it either. But certainly in a weird situation. The thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is that the NCAA didn't just let the players who had played 4 years have that 5th year. And I realized there was the whole thing with, some of them had redshirted and all of this sort of thing. And you wanted it to be a clean break. But it feels like if you'd had people do it who had only played 4 and who had been in college for 4 years, that, you could have easily made a delineation there and given them that 5th year and avoided a lot of this mess, at least. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it.
One last thing before I let you go. Who plays for the national title and who wins?
Oh man, maybe this is just a little bit of bias because I've actually been studying up on Oregon, but I really think that team is good. I think that is a really talented team. As far as I haven't looked at enough of the other teams to have to say, oh, maybe this is a favorable schedule. So I'll just go with chalk and say that Ohio State is the other team there, but. I really think Oregon has all the tools to go win the title.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Scott Wright. Tell the people, obviously, gopokes.com, but tell the people where they can see your stuff or hear you.
Yeah, you find me on Twitter at Scott Wright OK. I'm the publisher of GoPokes.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And my podcast is the OK State Insider on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Scott Wright. I'll be picking your brain throughout the season, Scott.
Anytime, man, anytime.
All right, my man. Have a good one.
We'll see you.
That's Scott Wright, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I wouldn't say like, well, it can't get any worse. It can't go 0-12. There's no way in hell. Look, when I look at the Big 12, again, I think it's going to come down to 4 teams: Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Houston. I think Texas Tech and BYU play for the Big 12, and I think Texas Tech wins. I think Texas Tech is a national title contender based off what they did last. They were 12-2 last year. They had a $25 million roster. Now the quarterback situation this past offseason was a little bit fucked up, but they've got a lot of people coming back. They can build off what they did last year. I think they will. Now look, playoffs didn't go as expected. I would not see why they couldn't do damage this year. I would not sleep on Texas Tech. Did they look good in the playoff? One game they did. If I can go through the Rolodex in my head from what I remember. But yeah, I wouldn't see why they couldn't be a sleeper. Again, BYU is going to be right there. Utah is going to be there. Some people have Houston. If you want to go deeper into the fields, I just don't think. I think they're heads above all the best. It's going to be an interesting Big 12 season. I just think Texas Tech and BYU are the class. And I went over the schedules for them. Now, if you want to, somebody like if you want to go down to Kansas State, they play Nichols. They'll win that. Then they're home against Washington. The first 3 games are at home. And they play Washington State and then Tulane. Tulane beat them a couple of years. They beat Nichols, but then the next 2 for Kansas State, they could easily lose. Then they're at Cincinnati, just a tough place to play. Then they get the bye. Then they got to play Houston. Kansas is homecoming. At Arizona State, at Carolina, home against Oklahoma State, at TCU, home against Auburn, at Iowa State. Not easy. I've seen some people have Arizona, but their schedule's brutal. They have to play the likes of Washington State. They've got to play Texas Tech. They've got to play Utah. They've got to play Kansas State. So, yeah.
You get sausage pizza to have a slice.
What's that?
Sausage pizza to have a slice.
Yeah, yeah. One of the owners over here, that's Sal Bernardo. He's a sandbagger. I give him shit about his golf game all the time. Of course, it's just the 3 of us here. Come on down if you're local, if you're watching. We're in CIGAR Lounge here in Florence, New Jersey. Grab a stick, bring your own beverage of choice: milk, orange juice, whiskey, rubbing alcohol. So yeah, I think the Big 12 is it's those 4 teams and then everybody else. Now, maybe there's another team that'll sneak up on everybody. I don't know. Like Arizona State did a couple years ago, where they just surprised everybody with Scadaboo and everybody. And they beat the shit out of Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. But yeah, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, and Utah are the 4 favorites. But I have Texas Tech coming out of the Big 12. Thanks again for everybody that's tuning in. Oh, before I forget, pull this up here real quick. I don't want to forget. Got to scroll through my notes. Sponsors. As soon as I get to it.
So
I may not be able to get to it. Oh, shoot. Where is it? I had it the first thing on here. And now I can't find. Oh, here we go. Let me take my ugly ass off here real quick. Where is it? There we go. Coming up at 8 o'clock, I believe. At 8 o'clock. Thought I had somebody coming on at 8 o'clock. Why is it not showing up here? Coming up at 8 o'clock, Jason Priest or in the program as well. He does Clemson football. I'm going to take another break, and then I'll be back for the last hour of the show. And at the end, I will pick my 12 college football playoff, and then I'll pick another championship game. And I will pick the national title win as my laptop starts acting up. But enjoy the music. I will be back in a jiff.
What the dog doing? That Saturday's here, the lights are bright. College football's taking flight. From the kickoff to the final fight, we're running student body right. Helmet on, crowd going wild. Every campus ready to get riled. Big time plays and rivalry pride. Ryan F's got the football right. Rankings rise, rankings fall. Every Saturday, somebody.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the final stretch here. 2026 college football season special here on the Red Line Radio Network. Student Body Right. Special college preview edition 2026 here at the Riverbend Cigar Lounge located in Florence, New Jersey. You guys stop on down. Got about an hour, grab like a really small stick. Bring yourself a little drinky drink. But we are in the home stretch here. Hopefully Jason Priester, who covers Clemson football, will be joining. He's a good friend of the program as well. I haven't talked to him for a while. I don't think Clemson is going to come close to winning the ACC. But I've been wrong before. I just don't think they have horses. It might be. I mean, look, they finished the season last year badly, and all those expectations last year, everybody thought that they were going to be a national title contender. And do I think they're going to suck this year? No. Do I think they'll be better than last year? Yes. Do I think they're going to make the college football playoff? No. Clemson fans are hoping I'm wrong. But I think the ACC is going to come down to SMU and Miami. There's a lot of people are sleeping on SMU. I'm not one of them. But I think the teams that are going to vie for the ACC are going to be Miami, SMU, Pitt. I think Pitt will be improved. You know what? I'll throw Clemson in there but you know what? I can't. Based off what they've done the last couple of years. It might even based off what he did last year. He was last year. But the repeat. I'll pick up Mitch Priester's. Hopefully he can come on. If not, he's busy too. But let me jump to the ACC. That's Miami's to lose. You got to stay healthy. When we look at the ACC and I look at Miami, they opened up the season at Stanford. That's a win. They're home against Florida A&M. That's a win. At Wake Forest, that's a win. Then they get Central Michigan at home. That's a win. At Clemson will be a tricky one. I'm going to put that as a toss-up just because it's in Death Valley. They get a bye. They're home against Florida State. But Miami has turned the tables on them here again. I've got the Pittsburgh game circled. I think that'll be a tough one. They're at North Carolina. Forget it. They'll win that one. At Notre Dame, there it is. Home against Duke. They probably win that one. Against Virginia Tech, they should win that one. At Boston College. I see it just popped into Greenland. And again, before I bring on my guess, go here. I got to do it properly. He'll recognize it. Fans will recognize it. Clemson University. That's the Clemson University fight song. Look, last year, the national title aspirations, they finished 7-6. But let's bring him on. Covering Clemson, that would be Mr. Jason Priester, a good friend of the program as well. JP, thanks for joining, my man. Oh, for some odd reason, I don't hear you. You have your mic muted, maybe?
My pleasure.
There you go.
I must have hit the button when I moved it just now.
Look, let's just jump into it. Last year they were 7-6. Other than that, look, they had national title aspirations last year. Didn't come to fruition. The Klubnik era is over. What are we hearing out of summer camp going into the game against LSU? Obviously, what are you looking for here early on in the season as far as improvement on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, there's been very little talk of LSU. That has not been the focus at all so far. They're just now getting into prep for those guys. The biggest story has been the quarterback battle. Everybody has assumed that Chris Vizina was just going to slide right in and take over Klubnik, but there's been this freshman Tate Reynolds has had a little bit something to say about that and made it a little tough on him. I fully expect Vizina will start in Baton Rouge. The question becomes, does Tate play? And if so, how much? Because the competition's been close. It's not like Vizina's ran away with it. So there's been a legit quarterback battle for the first time since 2018. You got some faces to replace up front along the offensive line. They retooled the secondary through the portal. They've got some serious questions at defensive tackle. And they've probably got some depth concerns at linebacker. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions surrounding this team. You mentioned it a minute ago. They had national title aspirations last year, went 7-6. Nobody's predicting this team to go compete for a national title this year. Even Dabo said a few weeks ago, this team's probably not going to win a championship. But the goal is kind of to get the arrow pointed back in the right direction and win more games.
Look, defense, I thought, took a little bit of a step back last year. They have traditionally been fantastic. But look, Brett Venable hasn't been there for how long? You obviously talked about the quarterback play. They've got to get that solidified. Look, I've seen prognostications that they're the third or fourth best team in the ACC this year. Obviously, Miami's going to be the favorite, along with SMU, maybe who else? You might throw Pitt in there. Louisville. I've seen people, based on what Virginia did last year. But when you look at this Clemson program and you look at the schedule, if they can just have the ball bounce their way a few of these games, would you consider 8-4 or 9-3 a success for this team this year?
Which one? Because I think there's a difference. 8-4? No. That's one win better than last year. I think fans are expecting more than that. I think the floor is 9-3. With the way the schedule shakes out, I think 9-3 should be doable. You got a tough stretch to start out with, the trip to Baton Rouge. You have to fly out west to Cal, then come back home and play Miami all before the bye week there or the open date on October 10th. So that first 5 games is a tough slate. If you can find a way to get, at worst, 2 losses. At worst, if you're 3-2 coming out of that, I think you set yourself up for a 9-10 win season. To me, that's got to be the goal. Anything worse than that, I could see another 6 or 7 win season for this team. And if you go into that bye week sitting at 2-3, having lost to LSU, Cal, Miami, you'll probably start seeing a lot more of the freshman quarterback by then if you haven't already. I just think the goals kind of change at that point. But to me, you got to improve by at least 2 games over last season if you really want to show some signs of real improvement. But something I think that gets lost in all of this is the year that was supposed to be the rebuild, right? Last year was supposed to be the year that They had all that return in production, and that they kind of set themselves up for last year to be a team that can compete at the highest level. Didn't work out that way. I think for a lot of reasons. This thing in particular, 6 was kind of supposed to be the build. You go 7-6 last year. Now you can't afford to have a rebuild. You got to show some signs of improvement. I think Dabo's feeling a little bit of pressure to do just that.
I got the LSU game circled, obviously. And look, I don't know what we're getting from LSU in Lane Kiffin's first year. I wouldn't see why they couldn't go into bat. Charleston's going to forget it. They'll win both those games. At Cal, I got them penciling in as the W. Look, the Miami game's at home. You know that place is going to be rocking. But you can't get down big early. Then they get the bye week. Charleston Southern's a winner. Virginia Tech is homecoming. James Franklin is there, but so what? At Florida State still has to show me something, JP. At Syracuse, I know traditionally sometimes has a hard time up there. The Georgia Tech, there's no Haynes King anymore. At Duke can be a tricky place to play. And, of course, you got the South Carolina game, which I call the Palmetto Bowl. That's when – because I don't know what we're getting out of South Carolina either. But the games I've got circled, LSU, Miami, what was the other one I had circled? It might have been Virginia Tech at homecoming because that might be tricky. Are there any others on there that might scare you? Go ahead.
Cal, absolutely 100% Cal. You have to go out there, play on a Friday night, 10:30, short week. And they've got a quarterback. I get it, man. They weren't very good on the back end of that defense last year. I think they'll be better this year, but they've got a quarterback that is good, that can light you up. I could absolutely see that being one of those shootout style games. And we don't know exactly what you're going to get from Clemson on the offensive side of the ball just yet. There's still a lot to be decided there, a lot of questions to be answered. So to me, the three I have circled would be LSU, Cal, Miami, 3 of the first 5. To me, those are going to be the kind of the 3 that kind of decide the trajectory of the season.
Let me ask you this. I think I asked you this last year. I'm going to ask it again this year. Based on what happened last year, and it hasn't gone Dabo's way the last 4 or 5 years because of NIL and the transfer portal, it's a different game. If he has the same kind of season this year that he did last year, is the burner going to start to turn up just a little bit?
Yeah, I think he's already feeling a little bit of pressure. But he's got like a $60 million buyout.
Okay.
So, I mean that thing is massive. And I also think people forget that the year before last, this was a team in the playoff. I know they were 10-4, but they were in the playoff. So I mean, it's not like it's been disastrous for the last 5 years, although it's absolutely not been what it was the previous 5 years before that, let's say from 2015 to 2020. But yeah, I think he feels a little bit of pressure to get it turned back around. I think, anybody that's been around him a little bit in fall camp over the past couple of weeks would tell you that we've seen a little bit of a different kind of Dabo. He's not been what's the word I want to use here? He's not been that overly optimistic guy that just raves about everybody. He's been very careful with which players he's praised. He's called his team a team full of nobodies, and that maybe they can have somebody after they play a few games. But, he's taking a different approach. If you look at the current recruiting class they've got in place, they've kind of made some modifications to how they approach that. They're spending a little bit more money on the high school guys as opposed to what they were doing, last cycle and the cycle before that. So, Dabo's not always been the quickest to adapt to some things. he eventually comes around, and we're starting to see that with some of the moves he's doing now. I mean, they've got like 11. Golly, they've got 12, 13. It might be 14 portal players on this team now because they've taken a couple during the summer too. I know they took 11 back in January, and they've added a couple more since then, so it might be 13. But so he's kind of diving into the portal now, but yeah, if you go out and go 7-6 again, yeah, the pressure certainly amps up. Do I think he's going to get fired? No. But I mean, his seat might start to warm up a little bit, man. But it's hard to have that conversation without throwing that $60 million buyout number out there, because that's a part of it.
Has he sort of ditched? Has he sort of ditched now? Well, I can just win with my players here that I have now. Has he sort of like the guys that he recruits and brings in, dipping into the portal? Has he sort of like put that on the back burner now, where he's finally come around and saying, you know what? I have to dip into the portal to compete now.
You know, I don't think Dabo was ever against using the portal. I think that's a narrative that's been pushed that isn't fully correct. He's always said, "Hey, man, if I got a gap, or you know, we have a decommitment, or we have some guys leave through the portal that create some holes," he says, I'll be glad to go do it. And that's exactly what happened. You know, they had a decommitment or two in the last cycle. You know, you had a couple of starting safeties leave. You had a defensive tackle leave that probably would have started for you this year. He actually went to LSU, and he's not even going to start there. Probably would have started at Clemson. And that's you know, safety and defensive tackles where they really hit the portal the hardest. You know, because they absolutely had some holes there. But I don't think you'll ever see Dabo get to a point where he's going to build his roster through the portal. I think you'll see him do what he did here. You know, if he's got gaps in his roster where he feels like he needs to fill, that's when you'll see him hit the portal, and that's kind of what they did in the offseason. You know, they needed to get better in the secondary, and a lot of effort was put into doing that. They brought in 4 DBs, 2 corners, or let's say a corner, a nickel, and 2 safeties. They've got 4 defensive tackles they've brought in through the portal. One of them tore his ACL in the spring. Brought in a linebacker who was immediately poached, and he ended up at Ole Miss. I mean, they went to work on that defense, man. You know, but a lot of it was due to attrition and having some kind of gaps there on the roster. Still there?
Yep, froze. The screen froze. There it is.
There it goes.
I got you now. All right. With all said and done, what's Clemson's record this year?
You know what? I've not even made that prediction yet. I might do that next week before the game. This is what I've said, though.
That's fine.
To me, I think the floor is 9-3. I think anything worse than that, and you know, it's going to be another long off season. And I think if you look at the schedule, I think 9-3 is doable. I think that's reasonable.
Who wins the ACC?
I picked Miami to win the ACC. I picked Miami and SMU to play in Charlotte. I picked Clemson 3rd, okay. Louisville 4th, and that was mostly because of my feelings on Louisville more so than Clemson. I have picked Louisville high each of the last 2 years, and they burnt me both times. So me and Louisville's kind of in this in the show me stage of our relationship. So I went with Clemson 3rd instead of Louisville, and that is the only reason why. Otherwise, I'd have picked Clemson 4th, like most others did, because that was the order of finish that the ACC media picked: Miami, SMU, Louisville, Clemson. I just had Clemson and Louisville flipped.
Before I let you go, who plays for the national title and who wins?
Oh man, I think Ohio State might be the team to beat. That's going to be a really good football
Okay.
team. It hurts me to say that because I'm not a big Ohio State guy, but yeah, I think they're going to be a hard out. If I had to pick one right now, that'd be it.
All right, JP, tell everybody where they can see you, they can watch your stuff, and how they can read your stuff.
All my stuff is at the ClemsonInsider.com. You can find me on Twitter right there at that handle right there, at JP_Priester. Not that I'm a big Twitter user, but
All right, JP, my man, just
that's where it's at.
I'll pick your brain throughout the season, my man. Enjoy it.
Anytime, my friend.
All right, my man. Talk to you later. Mr. Jason Priester. Look, I think Clemson's going to win the ACC this year. No. I just think Dabo has fallen behind the times way too much, although JP might disagree with me. I just think that in the NIL and transfer portal age now, you've got to change your way of thinking now. Because a lot of these kids, I mean, over the decades, is every program doing shady shit? Absolutely. You just don't get caught. Now, some of the stuff going on now, when SMU got the death penalty 40 years ago, it seems like chump shit. It is Miami's to lose in the ACC. SMU is going to be right there. Louisville is going to be there. I think Clemson is going to be there. Yes. Pitt might make a jump this year. What can Virginia do based off what they did last year? I got Miami winning the ACC this year. Made the national title game last year. I did not think they were going to make a national title game last year. I just think that if there's one team that could get Miami a run for the money in the ACC this year, it's SMU. The SMU schedule, they're at Florida State. That'll be the first telltale sign. With the home against UC Davis, that'll be ugly. Then they're at Louisville. Right off the bat, 2 road games in the ACC. Illinois, Missouri State, W. Boston College at home, W. Bye week. Home against Virginia. Probably not going to be a cakewalk. Home against Cal. Should be a W. At Syracuse. Should be a W. Home against Virginia Tech. We'll see. Home against Wake Forest. At Notre Dame will be really tough. And then they're at Stanford. And they were 9-4 last year. We'll see how Clemson does based off last year. Tired about NC State because they're 8-4 every year, or 6-6, 7-5. Georgia Tech 9-4 last year, looking like gangbusters. They fell apart toward the end of last year. I think they take that step back. Florida State, what are they going to do? Duke 9-5 last year. I think they'll probably take a step back. North Carolina, forget it. Wake Forest 9-4 last year. Not a lot of people realize that. I think they take a step back. I think Miami wins the ACC. Coming up at 8:30, Mr. Jared Pruger, Penn State, and pick his brain about what's going on up there in State College. How the Nittany Lions are looking. I think they'll be improved under Matt Campbell. Do I think they're going to make college football playoff push? No. They were 7-6 last year. But I think they can improve. Penn State opens against Marshall and then at Temple, home against Buffalo. They'll be 3-0. Home against Wisconsin for homecoming. Toss up at Northwestern always poses a tricky situation. Home against USC, tough. At Michigan, tough. Bye week. Purdue, W. At Washington, tricky. Home against Minnesota, tricky. Home against Rutgers, W. At Maryland, W. Could be 8-4. but I'll pick his brain again. 8:22 here, Eastern Standard Time. That would be 5:22 on the West Coast. I am going to take another break. I'll be back at 8:30 into the final home stretch, final half hour. That's right, student body right. 2026 college football preview special here on the Red Line Radio Network at the Riverbend Cigar Lounge in Florence, New Jersey.
What the dog doing? Saturday's here, the lights are bright. College football's taking flight. From the kickoff to the final fight, we're running student body right. Helmet on, crowd going wild. Every campus ready to get riled. Big time plays and rivalry pride. Ryan F's got the football right. Rankings rise, rankings fall. Every Saturday somebody's got a call. Touchdowns flying, defenses collide. Strap it up, student body ride. Student body ride. With Ryan F tonight. College football, bring the fight. Big plays underneath the lights. From the Headsmith seat to the Big Ten fall. Isaac, safety, Fred, everybody collide.
That's right. Final half hour here. 6:29 here on the East Coast.
Student body ride.
Actually, not out there on the West Coast. Thanks to the Ginch Quartet there. Again, Ryan F. here, Student Body Right, 2026 College Football Preview Special, Red Line Radio Network. Pizza has been delivered. Hopefully coming up in the next couple of minutes, Jared Pruger, who covers Penn State football. He'll be coming on. Talk about Penn State football, what's going up there on in State College. And forgetting to do this too. And let me pull it up here. Jared Pruger, it's at JPruger26. He's a coach, writer, difference maker, Penn State football and basketball for Nittany, at Nittany SN and at Altoona Curve for the at Altoona Mirror PA, member of the Football Writers Association of America. He'll be coming on. Talk now about the Big Ten. Look, a little bit changed in the college football playoff this year. There are automatic bids, but the seeding is going to be based on, there's no like automatic seeding anymore from what I was reading. They're going to, again, how they're going to seed them. I should know this, but my head spins from the transfer portal and NIL and all this other shit that's going on with the fifth year of eligibility, and now pros can't come back. It's just a mess. Who do I think will win the Big Ten? I think it's going to be Ohio State. I think it'll come down to Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State. Indiana might have something to say about it. Some people picking USC. I don't see it. Still have to see it out of.
Right, it's like
All right, thanks. Lincoln Riley hasn't done shit at USC since he's been there. So USC, nah. Again, if I had to throw somebody in the equation, it would be Iowa, if you ever had any semblance of a quarterback. But the defense might not be that good this year, from what Tom Caker is saying. Some people might say Washington. I don't see that either. I think it'll come to Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. I think Oregon and Ohio State will play for the Big Ten title. I think Ohio State will win. And you look at Ohio State's schedule, they play Ball State, then they're at Texas. Which will be the big one early in the year. Home against Kent State, home against Illinois. At Iowa, home against Maryland. At Indiana, obviously. Bye week at USC, home against Oregon, Northwestern, at Nebraska, at Michigan. I see 11-1, maybe. Texas is a big one. Iowa's a big one. Indiana, USC, Oregon. Not easy. Indiana plays North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky. Shame on you. Home against Northwestern. Their first 4 games are at home, by the way. At Rutgers should win. At Nebraska should win. The big one against Ohio State. At Michigan, tough. Minnesota game again, tough. USC, tough. At Washington. There's potential for 3 losses on there. Oregon plays Boise State, tricky. At Oklahoma State, that'll be fugly. Home against Portland State, at USC, big one. Bye week, home against UCLA, home against Nebraska, at Illinois, tricky. Home against Northwestern, blowout. At Ohio State, huge. Home against Michigan, huge. At Michigan State. And then Washington. USC, first 3 games at home, San Jose State, Fresno State, Louisiana, tune-up games. Then they're here in Jersey at Rutgers. Big one against Oregon at home. Then they play Washington in back-to-back. That's a homecoming game. And then at Penn State, bye week, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, at Indiana, Maryland, at UCLA. I just don't see them making it through the ball. I'm not going to include Michigan, Penn State, nah. Washington, nah. Some sleepers. There's some improved teams that I'll throw in here. I've got my Phil Steele's Bible here. He comes out with his most improved teams every year, or teams that he think will make the jump.
Yeah.
Where was it at? He has who will be this year's surprise teams. His number 1 surprise team is Alabama. I don't know if it's really a surprise. His number 2 surprise team would be BYU. They finished 12-1 last year. It's really not much of a surprise team. Oklahoma, not much of a surprise. USC, no. Utes, maybe. SMU will make some noise. He's got Clemson here as his number 7 surprise team. Again, you hear JP talk about 9-3. If they go 9-3 and win a bowl game, Louisville. Again, he has number 9 here. The Iowa Hawkeyes. They could just get some quarterback play. Let's see. He has the Houston Cougars. We talked about the Cougs. He has Tennessee. TCU, need to see it. Who else does he have on here? He has the top group of 6-team tiers. He has Navy on top, Boise State 2nd, James Madison 3rd, Fresno State 4th, New Mexico 4th, Liberty 5th. Yeah, there's 42 bowl games, by the way. 84 teams make bowls. There's only 130 one college football. If 140, whatever it is, it's more than 2/3. Let me just let every team in. Here's your participation. Some FCS scores updated. In the 4th, Maine up on Towson, 21-15. In the third, Delaware State up at the top of Stony Brook, 31-20. In the fourth, Youngstown State all over Mercyhurst, 43-3. In the fourth, Ohio Dominican over Morehead State, 34-18. Just starting in the third, Elon 21, Glendale State 0. Halftime, Eastern Illinois and Murray State are tied 14 apiece. Halftime, Georgetown up on Lafayette 13-7. In the second, Austin P up on Gardner Webb 21-10. Just starting the third, Linden won over Charleston Southern 10-3. Halftime, Western Illinois over Northwestern Iowa 27-7. In the third, Chattanooga over West Georgia 10-7. In the third, Presbyterian up on Virginia Wise 10-7. Halftime, St. Thomas over Winona State 6-3. In the third, Houston Christian up on Southeast Louisiana 17-7. At the half, Furman over Anderson, South Carolina 17-3. Halftime, Nichols hammering Mississippi Valley State 37-0. Halftime, West Florida over Southern Illinois 20-9. Right now in the second, Midland Concord over Davidson 28-27. In the third, Central Arkansas over UT Martin 13-10. In the second, South Dakota Mines over Drake 14-10. First, North Dakota over Long Island University 22-zip. In the first, Northwestern State over Louisiana Christian 10-7. I was hoping I had Jared Pruger on. Hope everything is okay. Let me just adjust a bit of light that I have here. Just a little. There we go. Let me just double check and see if he's going to come on. Yeah, hope everything is okay. But he's busy. I just shoot him a text. I've got caught up. Yeah, but let me just count the bowl games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. 45 bowl games. 45. That's asinine. Oh, Heisman Trophy. Some of your top picks for the Heisman Trophy this year. Arch Manning from Texas. Dante Moore from Oregon. CJ Carr, Notre Dame. Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss. Julian Saint, Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. Darian Mensah, Miami. Who else here? Sam Levitt, quarterback LSU. Devin Dampier, Utah. Josh Hoover, Indiana. He's got many contenders here. I'm reading off Phil Steele's here. I'm going to throw a non-quarterback out at you. Come on, Lacey, running back, Ole Miss. He's going to have to do a bulk of the work. Running wise, he had 1,500 yards last year with barely an offensive line. Watch him. He could do some damage. Bo Jackson, not that Bo Jackson. Running back, Ohio State.
That's what we don't tell. I didn't do the fantasy stuff yet. Yeah.
Gunnar Stockton. Some sleepers, but I say watch out for Quan Lacey for the Heisman. Don't think Jared Kruger's coming on. I hope everything's okay. Told him around 8:30. It's 8:45. So this is what we're going to do. I might end this here a little bit early. I'm going to pick these are my 12 teams that I think are going to make the college football play. Notre Dame, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Texas Tech, BYU, Miami, Texas A&M, Utah, and get ready for this one, New Mexico. I think New Mexico is going to win the Mountain West, and I think they sneak in there for your 12th and final spot. Again, I'm not going to seed them. Not going to seed them at all. Get ready. This is going to shock some people. Playing for the national title game, Georgia and Texas Tech. I'm not going to go chalk. I'm not going to go Notre Dame. I'm not going Texas. I'm not going Ohio State. I'm not going Indiana. I'm not going Oregon. I'm not going BYU or Miami or A&M or Utah. Georgia, just for something different, going to play Texas Tech for the national title. Jared Kruger not getting back to me. You got to hope everything's okay. Again, I know these guys are busy. He said he just got home and he just popped into the green room. I know people are busy. Got to give him a proper introduction though, as I always do. He'll recognize it. The Penn State fight song. They were 7-6 last year. It didn't look good there for a while. They righted the ship. Now Matt Campbell has taken over. Let me bring him on. There he is. Is he coming on? Let me do this. There we go. There he is. Jared Kruger. Jared, thanks for joining the program.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I had my high school coach's show that ran a little late today, so we're here now.
Okay. I appreciate the time. Look, 7-6 last year. A lot of people had them pegged in a national title game. Didn't go as planned. Obviously, James Franklin not there anymore. They bring in Matt Campbell. He brings a bunch of people over from Ohio State to Penn State. How is the team looking offensively and defensively in summer camp?
I mean, it's hard to tell because we don't get to see a lot of practice. Number one, both the starter and backup were hurt during spring ball. So, I mean, there are a lot of unknowns. Like last year, I think we all assumed that Penn State was going to be really, really good, and the opposite happened. So now it's into the unknown where we don't know how good this team's going to be, how the mesh is going to be between the Iowa State players coming to the Big Ten, the guys that they kept, some of the other transfers. Obviously, Rocco Becht is about as experienced a quarterback you can get without having to get a temporary restraining order from a guy in the NFL. So, I mean, having that and him knowing the system and Alex Mansky, his backup, knowing the system that those guys are bringing over, I think is going to be a lot bigger of a factor than most.
So when you look at this team as currently constructed, now I thought they didn't really utilize the running game like they should have last year. And deep in November, and if you want to get to December, you got to run a football in the Big Ten. How the running backs? Who's going to start?
That's a good question. It's so tough to kind of determine that because they just left so much to be desired last year. Obviously you've got some good talent there, but we really haven't been able to see a lot at these practices. So I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see come Marshall. And I think they're going to do a lot of running back by committee which will be good for some fresh legs. And they've got a really good offensive line that I think is going to be able to kind of propel them a lot further than people think.
Marshall at Temple, home against Buffalo. These first 3 games, what are you looking for specifically as they tune up for Wisconsin on homecoming?
I think they just need to come out and be crisp. I mean, obviously, game reps are a lot different than you're going to see every practice or over the summer. Just come out, be crisp, do the opposite of what they did last year. I know it's obviously a different program now, different coaching staff, which I think is a good thing. I think James Franklin wore out his welcome. You just can't lose those games. And then obviously he's at Virginia Tech doing exactly what he did at the start for Penn State. And it's like PTSD, which is absolutely crazy. But just come out and be crisp, be efficient. Obviously, they're better than Marshall. They're better than Buffalo. They're better than those, and then Temple. But at the end of the day, you still got to go out and execute. And if they go out and execute, I think they'll be good. Defensively, I think they're going to be solid. Tony Rojas will be back, which will be huge. They lost him last year to injury. I think they have a really good nucleus of guys that can really pick up where they should have left off after the 2024 season when they went to the Orange Bowl and or really a play away from the national title game. So, I mean, it's a lot different team. It's a lot different expectations now. I don't know that there are very many expectations, but this is a year. 9-3 is probably a disappointment. I think 10-2, your biggest games, I think, are Michigan and USC, and it's already a different mindset as far as those games are concerned with Matt Campbell and what Rocco Becht said about some of his Penn State teammates. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
How patient do Penn State fans have to be now, especially since it's a wrestling school now? I never thought that I would say that. It was a football program. It was football school. Now it's a wrestling school. So I'm sure Penn State fan. How patient do they have to be? This regime.
I don't think they can be patient. I think that's the biggest thing. They have to be able. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy outside.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean they don't have to be. They can afford to not be patient because this is a ready-made team, ready-made for success. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that all goes and how that kind of progresses throughout the rest of the season. And this is the year they have to be good because it's a very easy, winnable Big Ten schedule.
These are the games I had circled down on here, Jared. Wisconsin, homecoming. I know Wisconsin's kind of fallen flat the last couple of years. I got that one. Obviously, USC at home. That'll probably be a whiteout game. At Michigan, the hated Wolverines. Whoop. He just disappeared. Let me put him back up here. There he is.
Sorry, I'm still here.
Michigan at Washington could be tricky. And then Minnesota at home. Golden Gophers are always a tough out. I had those 5 games circled that could make or break their year. What say you?
Those are definitely the ones that I would circle too. I mean, it's so tough, but it's such a different mindset now that I think it's going to be really difficult. As I just lost all my background light, to kind of determine. I'm so used to James Franklin and what James Franklin has done and said, and the mentality. Like, you don't expect them to win any big games, but now with a whole new era, new regime, it's a whole different mindset. And I think that's the most fascinating thing. There's so much that isn't unknown. That's unknown. And it's a nice breath of fresh air. You see Matt Campbell speak, and it seems genuine. Like, he had Sue Paterno come and speak to the team. And that says an awful lot about Penn State and Matt Campbell, because James Franklin wouldn't have sniffed any Paternos coming anywhere near his football program, and for the right reasons. I think you have to kind of tread lightly with that, but it's a whole new era of Penn State football, and I expect them to win more big games than they lose under Matt Campbell. And I think he's won some big games with a lot less at Iowa State. And granted, it's the Big 12 versus the Big 10. I think the Big 10 is far superior as a conference. But at the end of the day, you got to go out and execute, and I think Matt Campbell is the right guy for the job to go and do that at Penn State.
What do you think the final record will be in the regular season for Penn State?
I thought they were going to go like undefeated or 11-1 last year, and their loss would be like the Ohio State, I think, if I remember correctly. I never would have saw 7-6. I'm thinking that the ceiling is going to be 11-1. I don't know how that USC game turns out. I don't know what to expect against Michigan at the Big House, but I'm going to go say 10-2. It's going to be my record prediction, which is probably a little bit more optimistic than I would typically be. But this is a whole new era of college football where you're bringing half an Iowa State team, meshing it with about a quarter of a Penn State team, and that stayed, and a couple of the coaching staff that stayed, and it's going to be an interesting mix of players and coaches, and this is a very, again, winnable schedule.
Before I let you go, who plays for the Big Ten title?
It's hard to say anything against, Ohio State and Oregon. I think Penn State could backdoor itself in there. I don't know enough about their schedules to really to say who's going to win there, but I would expect Ohio State and Oregon, and then possibly a Penn State to maybe backdoor themselves in there like they did a few years ago, with just how weak their conference schedule is.
And then final thing before I let you go, who plays for the national title and who wins?
Oh man, that's a tough one. You're here with the hard hitting questions. I actually just went out and played with the dogs instead. No, I think Ohio State has a chance. Obviously, they're always just typically good. The SEC is, I think, a crapshoot this year. I'm very interested to see what Pete Golding does at Ole Miss. I don't think they're going to be a national title contender, but I'm very intrigued by him as a coach, given what he went through with Lane Kiffin. I think Notre Dame's going to be up there with Marcus Freeman. And then obviously I think Indiana is a team that you got to kind of watch out for and see if they, if it was beginner's luck for Cignetti or not. So, I mean, it is wide open. I would expect Oregon. Again, it could be a Big Ten championship rematch. It could be Oregon, Ohio State playing for a national championship. I guess it all kind of depends on how those brackets work out and what's next for those teams. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that all plays out. But I'm not sure quite where it's at. But I think the favorites for me would have to be a couple Big Ten teams in Ohio State, Oregon, and then you throw in, the conference list, Notre Dame, because I think Marcus Freeman's a tremendous coach and a tremendous leader.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Jared Pruger. He's a busy guy, doing shows, playing with his dogs. JP, thanks for joining the program. I'll be picking your brain throughout the season.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. I apologize for all the chaos.
That's okay. They're fine. Thanks, my man.
Enjoy.
All right, thanks. So I picked my 12 teams to make the college football playoff, which comes to the conclusion of the show. Thanks to all the guests who came on. It's been fantastic. It's been spectacular. Thanks for Sean and John for letting me do it here at the Riverbend Cigar Lounge. Always a good time. So I surprised you, didn't I? I got Georgia playing Texas Tech in the national title game, just for something different. As I see everybody else go chalk, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon. I'm taking Georgia to play Texas Tech. And for the first installment this year, the college football season, I got to do it. There's no drum roll. I'm just going to throw up the background here. It's who gets the finger. That's right, Georgia. You get the finger. There's the foam finger, ladies and gentlemen. Georgia will win the 2026-2027 national title by beating Georgia Tech. Again, thanks to everybody that tuned in live, anybody that checks the replay out. It's been fantastic, as it always is. Enjoy the college football season. Go out and check some FCS games. Right now, there's like 20 of them that are going on right now. Check that out. I will see everybody Monday right here on the Red Line Radio Network for another edition of For What It's Worth and Early Evening Sports Buffet with the Game Show. I'm out. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. I will see everybody on Monday. Just get to my music. Let's play it out. See everybody on Monday.
That Saturday's here, the lights are bright. College football's taking flight. From the kickoff to the final fight, we're running student
Redline Network introduces our newest partnership, Outlaw Light. Outlaw is crafted for all of the beer drinking patrons of America. They aren't reaching or teaching, their mission plain and simple, to provide a high quality beer at an affordable price. Outlaw is crisp, crushable, refreshing. Available by the case, tall boys, 16-ounce 6-packs or singles. Go to outlawbeer.com to find the nearest can or tavern near you. The Redline Network proudly raises their cans to you. Stay bold, Outlaw.